Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Life Well
Great to have
Lived
you
by
on the show. This
Omobola
is Omobola
Stephen.
Stephen, the
It's
host
an
of Life
engaging
Knowledge
and
from Omobola
enlightening
Stephen, a
talk show on
self-improvement
life,
business and economic
relationships, and
podcast,
the business of
which
life.
aligns
Grab a cup
topics
of
that is
juice
related to
and
personal
just chill.
development and
Life Well
self-improvement,
Lived by
disrupting
Omobola
kind of mind
Stephen.
shift
Live
conversations
life.
that is
Live
persuading you to
fully.
move from where you are to where you need to be with experienced professionals who are adept in these topics. Today, I have Jim Salvucci, who is a certified tiny habits coach and also a leadership coach on the show. Jim will be talking much more about value-driven leadership and also focusing on tiny habits. Now, such an interesting topic of discussion. Welcome to the show, Jim Salvucci.
Thank you, Omobola. It's great to be here. Appreciate it.
Great to have you on the show. Looking forward to a great time once again. We want to talk on leadership, value-driven leadership, and also how these tiny habits make all the difference in the long run. And so I'd like you to tell me, how can we develop positive habits and behaviors using the tiny habits method?
So tiny habits, just to give the full background, was developed by B.J. Fogg, who is a Stanford behavior researcher. He runs the Stanford Behavior Change Lab, and he had several great insights. He's an incredible researcher, and one of his great insights is that we can build great change in our life through very small changes by planting seeds. And one of the ways we do that is through studying the Fogg behavioral method. The Fogg behavior method has to do with the idea that all behavior breaks down into three elements. You have a motivation, you have your ability to do it, and then you have some sort of prompt, something gets you to do it. And often what we do is we try to change our behavior, change our habits, learn new things, do new things through motivation. And the limits of motivation are pretty limited. If you need a great example, go to the gym in January and then go to the gym in February, and you will see a physical example of the drop in motivation. Everyone's all gung-ho to work out in January, and by February, their willpower has waned, and that's it. So BJ thought, well, what if we, instead of manipulating motivation, we manipulate the ability, make it easy to do. If you want to do 30 push-ups, don't start with 30 push-ups, start with 2. If you can get down on the floor and do 2, or even just partial push-ups, whatever you can do, you won't have to worry about the motivation. And the third element is the prompt. And sometimes you can alter the prompt as well, but that's a little bit different. And the prompt is something that just gets you to do it. And one of his other great insights was something that some people call habit stacking, where you literally are taking something you already do and using that as a prompt to do something else. So for instance, brushing your teeth is something you might do every day. I hope everyone does that every day. Use that routine becomes the prompt for something else, right? So if you want to get a little more exercise, maybe when you brush your teeth, you do some squats or something like that, or something related to your teeth. Maybe you're not a big flosser. Okay, so what you do is you break out the floss and you floss one tooth. Most people can get up the motivation to do one tooth. And so they do one tooth. And then the thing is, it might not happen right away, but over time, they start flossing all their teeth. The other key, and this is a really important part, is that we don't form habits over time. We form them based on emotion. So when we are forming a habit, you've heard all these things about, 22 days to a new habit, 90 days to a new habit, 6 months to a new habit. The reason there's all these different time frames that people use is because none of them are true. There's no research to back them up at all. What creates a habit, what causes a habit to lock in is emotion. Every habit you have is the product of some sort of emotion that you felt. And what we try to do with tiny habits is make that emotion as positive as possible. So you're creating a new positive habit, flossing your teeth, we'll say. Every time you floss that one tooth, you celebrate it. And I mean celebrate. You feel it. You feel what BJ has defined as the sense of shine, the emotion of success. He calls it shine. So when you feel that shine, you feel that emotion of success, you will start to do it habitually. Every time you brush your teeth, you'll think, oh, I need to floss that one tooth. You floss that one tooth, you figure, I might as well stick around and do the rest. And that might not happen overnight doing the rest, but eventually that plants the seed. And then over time, you're not even thinking about it. You just do it automatically. I've been a tiny habits coach for a year now, and I've used this method many, many times. And I don't even know how many habits I've developed, really positive things in life, getting more exercise, cleaning up after myself, doing just many, many different things I used to forget to do. I leave something behind all the time. Like when I do the laundry in my family. So I put all the laundry together and I always forget to bring the stuff from the kitchen. Well, I created a tiny habit. So now when I put all the other laundry together, I grab stuff from the kitchen and I celebrate. And it does, I never forget. I literally never forget. So it's a way of reminding yourself to do things, but it's also a way of getting yourself to develop new behaviors that will grow into tremendous change in yourself. The other piece of this is it's all about learning the skills of change. Change is a skill that you must master. In fact, it's a series of skills, and we all can change. I'm getting later in life, and I've learned all this new stuff. All right. Most people my age are thinking I'm kind of locked in. That isn't true. Not at all. And I'm living proof of that.
All right. Now, still talking about positive habits, I'd like us to emphasize instinctual and also learned habits. Which do you think kind of these two leads to effective and successful leadership?
Leadership is not born of any one thing. I think that really to be open to being a leader, to becoming a leader, you need to be open to a number of things. Some are instinctive, some are inside you, right? Some are things that you learn as you go along. Leadership is a discipline. I studied leadership as a discipline. I made it my discipline. So leadership is something that you learn, you study, but you also might have some instincts toward it and you put it into practice. You often hear people are born leaders. I think there are people who have innate aspects of their personality in that direction. But they're not necessarily good leaders. To be a really good leader, to be a great leader, that requires study and discipline. And that requires creating habits, creating practices that are based on your values, not your instincts, your values. The best leadership is values-based leadership. So the first step is identifying your values and figuring out how you're going to tap into those in order to become a great leader.
Right. Now, value-driven leadership comes with its own challenges, and I'm sure that you know about that, talking about leading to chaos for individuals. The actionable steps that leaders can take on at this moment in order for them to solve this chaos. Can you share?
Yeah. So values-based leadership sounds a little narcissistic in some ways, right? You're looking into yourself and you're putting yourself out there as leader. I would contend, and this may sound a little unconventional, but I would contend that every leader has to be a narcissist. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't mean they're narcissists run amok, but they need to have that self-confidence. They need to have that self-awareness. They need to actually feel good about themselves. It doesn't have to be pathological, right? What they have to do is they have to keep that in check. And so I have a technique I call stuffing your ego in a sack and throwing it in the river. And basically that means that you will have to, on a regular basis, and this is one of the habits you have to develop as a leader, you will have to take that tendency toward narcissism, that tendency toward ego, and pack it down and get rid of it and, and drown it, frankly, in order to move forward. Now, the good news is that your ego is incredibly resilient and it will not drown and it will return very quickly. And so you need to do it again, right? There's no danger there. There's no risk. The risk is in not doing that and not checking your ego and not checking your narcissism and not making sure that you are doing right by other people first. Now, the thing with values is that, you need to look at your values as an ongoing concern, right? This is something that will change. Your values will change, your ideas will change, your experiences will change. All these things come into it. You need to be open to that. You shouldn't have the same values when you're 50 that you had when you were 20. If you do, there's something seriously wrong. Things will change. They may not change radically, but they will. And you need to be aware of those changes. And you need to make choices about how you've changed your values, and don't just let it happen. So a lot of it is self-awareness as well. So you notice a lot of leadership starts with the self. It starts with knowing who you are, knowing what your values are, knowing what values need to change, how you're going to change them. And it also means acknowledging the fact that you probably have a good degree of narcissism, and you got to take that, stuff it in the sack, and throw it in the river on a regular basis. So that's part of the challenge. Now, when you project that leadership out into the world, what you do is, if you want to drive people, the best way to drive people is through values, shared values. Values-driven leaders make the best leaders because people want to be led by them. They are when they are a boss, when they are a manager, and they happen to be a leader, which those two things are different. Then if they're a good leader, they will be able to hire and retain the best people because they're values-driven. People recognize those values. And often those values are reflected in the mission of your organization, be it a business, a nonprofit, a university, whatever it is. You have some sort of mission, and you all rally around that mission. And really great leaders know how to get people to rally around the mission, rally around values, share their values, openly talk about these things, and put them into practice.
All right. Thank you, Jim Salvucci, for your insight. Now, talking about leaders, what are there few boss leaders, and why have so many leaders not bosses? Do you have any personal experience or any insights you can share on this?
Some I can share and some I cannot. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I am 58 years old. I had one boss who was, I would say, a great leader for 1 year in my entire life. And I had to wait until I was 51 to get that boss. And I had some decent bosses. I had some good bosses, but a really, truly great leader, I had one. And basically what it comes down to is bosses are not leaders. They are not. There are two different things. There are many, many bosses in the world, and very few of them are leaders. And then even fewer still are great leaders. And there are plenty of leaders out there, even great leaders, who will never be a boss. Those two terms have nothing to do with each other. And one of the troubles we have is that we mix those two things together. And I've had some bosses, including leaders of universities and colleges, presidents, who were anything but a leader. They were purely bosses, but people thought of them as leaders. They were thought of as thought leaders. They were thought of leaders in the community. They were not. They had no idea of even remotely how to lead. They were too busy focusing on themselves. And they were too caught up in management things. The one boss who I had who was a great leader was actually a college president, and he actually took those things on, and he had guts. His last year as a president, he was retiring. His last year as a president, he went out of his way to make some changes so his successor would be set up for success. He did not have to do that. And he even took some hits from the board doing that. That was extraordinary. That was a great lesson for me to witness. That's what a great leader does. A great leader puts himself aside for others. That's what a servant leader is.
All right. So, Jim, I know that you published his facts in the life and works of Bob Dylan. Right. And so, what's up with him lately? Any serious thing you'd like to share?
Well, Bob Dylan just celebrated his 82nd birthday the other day on May 24th. And I would say that Bob Dylan is probably the greatest living, well-known artist, certainly in the US and possibly in the world. His output over his decades and decades of experience, they're dating back to the 60s, is tremendous. It continues. People constantly ask, oh, is he still alive? Yeah, he released an album a couple years ago. He came out with a book this past fall. He paints, he sculpts, and he's on tour. So he's actually starting a European tour right now. He's still performing. And what inspires me about him is that he is constantly creating. He's constantly moving. He's never the same. you could see him 2 nights in a row in concert. And it used to be he would change his set list. I mean, he wouldn't even necessarily be playing all the same songs. Now he keeps a static set list, but sometimes he'll change up how he plays the numbers. And he rarely plays them exactly the way they were on the album. Sometimes he changes the lyrics. Sometimes he changes the lyrics from night to night. He sings a new verse, and the next night that's gone or something like that. It's just an incredible creative output. He just isn't settling for the same old, same old. Steve Jobs famously, at one point when Apple was really struggling and they needed a big breakthrough, he said to his staff, write a Bob Dylan song. In other words, do something that's just so different and so new, even if it's based on the past, and Bob Dylan's steeped in the past, but something that's just so new that no one's ever really seen it before. No one's ever heard it before. And that's exactly the way art should be. It should be moving and ephemeral. With music, we over 100 years ago, we didn't have recordings. Music was entirely ephemeral. Once music was performed, it was done. You could write it down, but you couldn't hear it again. Now we're used to hearing it over and over again, right? We have recordings. That's very different. Bob Dylan somehow operates in both worlds. His music is both recorded and permanent and ephemeral at the same time. And I find that amazing.
Right. Thank you once again, Jim, for your experts insight, talking about leadership and value-driven leadership, and also on tiny habits. Do you have any projects in the pipeline you would like the audience to get to know about?
Well, I have a blog and podcast. I write a blog every week and I record it because some people like to listen to it. And it's called On Leading with Greatness, and it's on Substack. It's jimsalvucci.substack.com. And I use that as a way of developing my ideas and sharing them with the world. I have a little bit of a different take on leadership than most people. I don't consider myself a leadership guru. I consider myself a leadership thinker, and I am trying to rethink how we approach leadership. And I really try to come at it from quite a few different angles. And so if you want to learn more about me and what I'm about, that's one way. I'm also, my website is guidanceforgreatness.com. That's my coaching company. And so I'm out there if you want to look that up as well.
Right. Any parting word you'd like to extend?
Yes. Join my movement. My movement is to rid the world of bad bosses by changing them all into great leaders. I need a lot of recruits. I need a lot of help. There's a few billion bosses to go, but we're getting there one at a time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you once again, Jim Salvucci, for your time. I really had a great time listening to your thoughtful leaders and leadership, talking about leadership, value-driven, and also tiny habits, that makes all the difference in the workplace and also in our personal life. I really want to wish you the best of luck in all the projects that you have now and also in the next future.
Yeah, thank you, Omobola.
All right. Now, if you'd like to catch up with any missed episodes of the show, you can do so on any cross-promotion platforms or distribution platforms you bump into. And you have a great time listening to the show. I need you to stay safe. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.